Today we're going to talk about the fourth item in solid value-based pricing. And the four items are, first is finding your value, the second is anchoring your prices, the third is giving options, and the fourth that we're going to cover today is being bold. Let's start with the story though. Many years ago, like most men, I did a lot of construction jobs, which essentially equates to lifting heavy stuff or swinging tools around. The coveted job on my construction site was to go pick up loads of whatever, lumber, gravel, because then you get to sit in a truck for a while, get the stuff loaded into the truck for you, and you get to drink coffee the whole time. And you get paid just as much as you would when you were standing in the rain or out in the cold or anything like that, down in the dirt, in the mud. You got paid exactly the same amount to stand in all that stuff or to sit in a truck with coffee where it was warm and dry. And you looked even like a hero when you came back with coffee for everyone. Now, most of our trucks were standard. In fact, I think all of them were that we used regularly. The one that wasn't was used for estimating, and that's about it. It was the nice truck that came to the edge of the construction site but didn't go through all the mud all the time and didn't get banged up by being close to machinery. I don't know about you, but at that time, I couldn't drive standard. I had never driven standard in my life at all. In fact, a number of the people on site hadn't driven standard. But one day, my boss looked at me and said, "Hey Curtis, can you drive standard?" I looked at him and said, "Yeah," because I figured I could. I had a friend, see, and he had had standard for a long time, and I had been driving with him lots, or he had been driving, I had been the passenger. And in all that time, he had talked to me a lot about driving standard. I understood that there was a clutch, you had to push it in. I understood about shifting, and I knew how the RPMs sort of worked, and certainly red was bad. But I had never actually driven standard once. But I told my boss, yeah, because I figured I could. So that had me in a 5-ton truck with a long trailer on the back with a Bobcat on it in Toronto, driving standard. Now, I didn't stall the truck much. And I never stalled it where the boss could see me, which is good because I would have looked like a real fool then. And I made it back safely. Didn't run into anything. I had driven larger trucks like that at previous jobs. The reason I tell you that story is to tell you that I'm a bold person by nature. I do stuff in my whitewater kayaking where I drop off 40-foot waterfalls. I decide I want to start running on the trails, and my first race is planning to be an ultra marathon. That's 50 miles, 80 kilometers. Going from not really running at all, lots of cycling, but to 80 kilometers. So I'm a bold person. But I still remember my first 10K project. I remember when 10K or $10,000 was a crazy amount of money that I just didn't figure anyone would possibly pay me. And it was a February, just after my birthday. And I had a good talk with a client. I thought I had found some value with them. I had just read a book called Double Your Freelancing Rate by Brennan Dunn. The first version, the second version is out now. And I thought, after I ran the numbers, I looked at it and I was like, that's about $6,000 is what I'd normally charge, because I just figured how many hours it was going to take and multiplied it by my hourly rate, which at the time was $75. And I looked at that and said, I just want to make more than $6,000. There's really nothing else in this. I just want to make more. And so I basically made $6,000 equal $10,000. I stopped the prices of everything until I was basically too super scared. It was the point where I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is scary. There's no way that someone would pay me this much. $10,000 is just an astronomical sum of money that no one would ever pay me." And I sent the estimate off. And I went downstairs and had a coffee and talked to my wife and told her, like, I just tried this. Like, I'm scared. I have no idea if this is going to happen. And at that time, I was not where I sit now, where I get lots of referrals, where I have 6 months of income in the bank. So if I have a bunch of time off, it really doesn't matter. I needed the money. Things weren't, by any means, I wasn't risking paying my bills, but, I needed a project that month to keep everything going, or else, things would be very tight. So I was nervous. I was scared. I needed to get that. And my phone rang while I was talking to my wife. And it was my client. My client called me simply to say, "Hey Curtis, if you send that in the next half hour, I can get that paid today. I would like to get that paid today so that I can secure your time." He'd only had the estimate for 5 minutes, maybe 10. And he took the time to call me to make sure that he got the invoice right away to pay me $10,000. And I said, yeah, I'll get that off to you. Totally surprised, because who's going to pay me $10,000 to do something? And I hang up the phone and I look at my wife and I say, boy, I should have made that $12,000. That was, one of the thoughts that went through my head. But the thing is, my client saw the value. The fact is, when you're pricing, it's likely you're worth more. Out of all the freelancers and business owners that I talk to, it is almost never that I talk to anyone where they tell me their hourly rate and I say, yeah, that sounds about good. Almost always, I'm telling them, you should double your rate. I recently talked to a friend of mine who I would say has an equivalent skill set to me, not necessarily in e-commerce and slightly other areas, but he's really good at what he does. And he told me his hourly rate was $65. And I looked at him and said, really? $65? And he said, well, you've been doing this longer than me. I'm just starting to go on my own. And I looked at him and said, I don't care. That's not important. Double it right away. Like, you need to at least be charging $120 because you're worth $120 for sure. He didn't go for that. He felt more comfortable at $99. And you know what? He still landed all the projects he figured he'd land. There was no change. So I made him, $30 an hour. No, just under $30 an hour he made, or just over $30 an hour extra he made. So now I'm working to talk him up to 120. His client still saw the value, even though he couldn't. So when you're doing your pricing, one of the keys, once you found your value, once you've learned how to price anchor, and once you've given good options, is to be bold. Be bold with your pricing options. If you think it's going to be, $5,000 based at your typical hourly rate, charge more. Double it. There's a company called Stuff and Nonsense that's run by Andrew Clark, typically called Andy Clark. And they used to have 2 days a week where they simply doubled their prices. There was no discrimination whatsoever. If the estimate went out on a Tuesday or Thursday, they doubled it. That's it. They landed the same amount of clients. If you're not comfortable doing it all the time, do it 1 day a week. Then do it 2 days a week. And then make it your regular price. It is highly likely that all that will happen is you'll make double the money. Now for me, a $10,000 project is kind of at the low end. When I look at a project that's $6,000, I'm like, is it even worth it? Like, that's only a couple weeks worth of work. Is that worth it? Most of my projects fall into the $15,000 to $25,000 range. It is not uncommon for me to even go higher necessarily once or twice a year, simply because I started being bold. That's my pricing tip for you today, or my tip for your freelancing for running your businesses. Be bold with your pricing. If you'd like more of this, I have a course coming up that'll start in November. It's going to go on sale October 14th for people on the email list, which you can get on at curtismchale.ca/subscribe, or it'll go on sale October 15th for those not on the list. And some of the packages that include time with me, in fact, all of the packages that include time with me are limited because my time is limited. Thanks for watching.